Thank you, Melvin and Mohammed. That's awesome to pull off our third demo of the day, third live demo. So far, they're all working. We've got one more coming up here in just a couple of minutes. I think that for Open Lab, this one is really an interesting and exciting thing that we've kicked off. I'd love to see more people get involved. There are so many technologies out there that people use together. OpenStack has always been about integrating these in together, and we need more people to help figure out what those combinations are and how to test them. So Open Lab is an awesome initiative, and please come get involved in that. OK, so next up, we're going to be hearing from Mark Shuttleworth. So let's welcome Mark. And welcome, Mark. Get you plugged in over here. So Mark is going to be doing our fourth and final demo of the day. We've had so many demos. We have hardware hidden everywhere, including some hardware over here under the pedestal. And looks like we've got it coming up here and ready to go. So take it away, Mark.
Jonathan, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. It is great to be back. It's great to be back at OpenStack. It's great to be back in Vancouver. From my perspective, the last year has been outstanding for OpenStack. You probably know Canonical publishes Ubuntu, so we really are the one company that can address every issue in an Ubuntu OpenStack. From the kernel, and we've seen a bunch of issues this year with Spectre and Meltdown, all the way up through the hypervisor performance, up to applications. And this year, as institutions have put OpenStacks that they have built on Ubuntu into production, in many cases with integrators like Ericsson and Mirantis, we've seen many of them reach out to Canonical to support that infrastructure, which we are delighted to do. But really, for us, the mission is much bigger than that. It is to remove all the friction for you in getting OpenStack up and running. We frame that as saying that we have the ability to deliver OpenStack anywhere in the world in less than 2 weeks with fewer than 2 people. And that's really important, because if we can do that economically, then you can operate it and own it economically. Last year, we did tens of OpenStack deployments. Currently, we're tracking more than 200 conversations with different institutions to deploy Canonical OpenStack. So we're having to ramp this capability significantly. We try to keep those engagements on Rails. We help people specify their hardware. It is different when you're buying hardware for a cloud. Work with architects to design that cloud, build it in less than 2 weeks, operate it if requested, and then step back and support it, coming back for things like upgrades every 6 months when OpenStack puts out new goodness. Today, I'm delighted to announce that one of our hardware partners in this ecosystem, Supermicro, has put together a special offer for those of you who are looking to get OpenStack on Rails. This is a single rack of high-spec hardware, everything you need for a highly available OpenStack deployment. And we've decided to include 1 year of delivery and managed services, including everything you need to essentially focus on your apps and engage with developers on top of this rack. It is direct pricing from Supermicro, which you can't normally get, but you can get it if you register your interest here at the summit at the Supermicro booth or the Ubuntu booth. Everybody's talking about Edge in the telco space. Canonical Ubuntu, obviously the preferred and favorite platform for telco OpenStack. I'm delighted that the 3 regional lighthouses who have now announced their reference architectures for Edge Cloud have done so with Ubuntu, MAS, and then combinations of Kubernetes, OpenStack, and other container technologies. The AT&T project's particularly interesting. That's MAS, Ubuntu, Kubernetes now being merged into a new open source project called Acrano. For those of you who are just coming up to speed on Edge, we do offer a workshop engagement. Again, come and see us on the booth. But for me, this last year wasn't about telco. It was about the finance sector. For me, OpenStack is about bringing real economic differences to every IT operation. And I'm delighted to say that after 1 year of knocking on these doors and making the case for Ubuntu, 4 of the global largest banks have contracted Canonical to build open infrastructure on Ubuntu. The world really has changed. It's changed for 2 big reasons: technology and money. And the money part is perhaps the more interesting. Because it used to be that enterprise solutions companies invested so that they could make their products more expensive. But Amazon's changed all of that, right? Money really matters now because Amazon said they were going to invest to create efficiencies. And efficiencies are all about driving down the cost of infrastructure. And now it's everybody, right? Today, if you look at it, Google, IBM, Microsoft, all investing and innovating to drive down the cost of infrastructure. Every single one of those companies engages with Canonical to deliver public services. Not one of them engages with VMware or with Red Hat to offer those public services. They can't afford to. Clearly they have the cash, but they have to compete, and so does your private cloud. So when we take out VMware, when we displace VMware, we are regularly told that a fully managed OpenStack solution costs half the equivalent VMware estate. Today, I'm delighted to announce a special offer, again, in partnership with Cloudbase and Trilio, specifically focused on people migrating from VMware to OpenStack. It includes an assessment of your workloads and a migration capability, and disaster recovery in the storage layer of OpenStack to bring some of the characteristics that people have traditionally associated with VMware to the OpenStack ecosystem, only available on a fully managed Canonical OpenStack. When it comes to Red Hat, the picture's a little more complicated. Everybody knows about RHEL and their operations for RHEL, but then you have OpenStack as an extra cost. And if you want to get to containers, well, I have to kind of zoom out, because Red Hat is telling analysts that even though the estate of RHEL nodes isn't growing very much, they're going to be able to charge 4 times the price for the same application on the same socket, thanks to OpenShift. Well, somewhat unsurprisingly, a lot of institutions have figured out that Ubuntu and upstream Kubernetes gives them 80% of what they need from a PaaS. And the incredible open Kubernetes ecosystem takes care of the remaining 20%. And that comes in at 1/3 the cost of RHEL, OSP, and OpenShift. When we're invited to bid and present in a paid POC head-to-head with Red Hat, we win 4 out of 5 times, including in companies that have never had any other Linux than Red Hat in the building. The world really has changed. So moving on to Kubernetes, again, Barack Obama said very eloquently, if he only watched Fox News, he would definitely vote Republican. You have to think carefully who you're listening to. And if you're only listening to Red Hat, then you won't have heard that every single major public cloud Kubernetes service uses Ubuntu to deliver Kubernetes. Google GKE with Ubuntu, the Azure Kubernetes service with Ubuntu, and the IBM Cloud Private also hosting containers on Ubuntu. So if you want to build your OpenStack service for containers, it makes sense to use exactly the same stack. So half the cost of VMware, 1/3 of the cost of RHEL, and truly portable multi-cloud Kubernetes. Now, we continue to invest in OpenStack. We think OpenStack actually continues to be the most important open infrastructure project, not some of the newer shiny ones. Those will fly too, but this is the place to be. And we do that to make it more efficient, not more expensive. Okay, so for a demo, I was trying to think of something that pulls together everything that's great about OpenStack and some of the sexiest stuff that I see customers doing right now. Obviously, that's AI. And I can't think about AI without this great movie from the 80s, the War Games. Who remembers War Games? Everyone has a famous line from War Games. I think the RHEL guys right now are thinking, let's play global thermonuclear war. That was a good line. I prefer, how about a nice game of chess? Or how about perfectly portable AI? So what I want to show you is some work between Google and Canonical to standardize enterprise developer workflows for multi-cloud AI. And it's using a project called Kubeflow. And I'm going to show you Kubeflow on Google Cloud and on OpenStack. So how do we do this? Well, you want hardware acceleration for your AI, your machine learning, so that's easy. NVIDIA is the leading provider of GPUs for machine learning. You'll find NVIDIA hardware inside Google Cloud. You'll find it in your data center if you go and talk to NVIDIA. And obviously, we can build clouds on top of that hardware and expose it up. In Google Cloud, it goes to the Google Compute Engine that uses Ubuntu to host the containers. And then Kubeflow is sitting on top of that, and there's Ubuntu inside the Kubeflow images as well. So it's Ubuntu all the way down on the Google side. And then with a little careful lining up of a lot of details, we can essentially reproduce that with Canonical's distribution of Kubernetes, the same OS, the same binaries of Kubernetes. Kubeflow, again, Ubuntu there, and perfect portability. So that's a pretty amazing story for those of you who are moving fast to get into machine learning and AI. And I want to show you what that looks like. Here we have, this is the GKE, the output of essentially the training on GKE. This is OpenStack running, and you'll see, let me just zoom out a little bit. You'll see these special instance types here with GPUs. You saw some interesting commentary earlier about virtualizing GPUs and passing them out. We haven't done that here. These are straight PCI pass-through, so each Kubernetes instance is effectively getting a GPU to itself. You could extend that with GPU virtualization. That's actually a Kubernetes that's being deployed, all of those instances on OpenStack. The ones that are on have the GPUs can then essentially be used for pods with Kubeflow. And so here's your dashboard for Kubeflow sitting on top of OpenStack in somebody's data center. So why is OpenStack important in that? Well, because it essentially allows the business to get maximum utilization of that very expensive hardware. And that hardware is really expensive. A single high-end GPU could easily be $10,000, and businesses are buying them like crazy. So you want to keep them fully utilized. And what OpenStack does for the business there is allow multiple different teams to essentially share that hardware very, very efficiently. There is a case for bare metal Kubernetes, which we will do as well, but that only really works when you have a dedicated budget for a dedicated team, and then they are either using it or losing it. OpenStack is essential, in my view, in that kind of construct to get maximum utilization across a large business of expensive hardware. And expensive sort of is the right word. The stuff is big. And we've been thinking a lot about how to get this much more consumable, how to democratize Kubernetes, how to make AI research something that anybody can do anywhere. This is a big thing for us. We look at how to make business infrastructure simpler and more cost effective, and then we look at developers' problems, how to simplify those. So anybody here today who has a Linux laptop handy is going to want to get it out right now and type this command: snap install microkates. Now, microkates is the fastest and easiest way to get upstream Kubernetes running on any Linux device in about a minute. And once you've installed it, you type this command: microkates enable DNS dashboard. And you then have a full running Kubernetes on your system. It's completely containerized off to the side. It won't trash your system. And if I can just show you what it looks like in the background. So this is the snap info for microkates. You can see it's got a bunch of services in the snap. This is actually version 1.10.3, which came out about 4 hours ago, and it will auto-refresh, so you'll have the latest and greatest Kubernetes. If you go onto Edge, you probably get it daily. If I show you the services running, there you have a bunch of services running, and I'll just zoom out a little bit. There you go. And now you can follow the standard upstream install instructions to get Kubeflow running on your laptop. So we've completely democratized AI engineering. Now, if you are an enterprise AI developer, then your laptop probably isn't going to cut it. But if you're a lucky enterprise AI developer, then underneath your desk, you might have what I have here underneath this desk. And this is a Dell AI Station. It is dedicated hardware built for AI research and development. Again, powered by Ubuntu. with microK8s as the easiest way to get up and running with Kubernetes, and then Kubeflow on top of that as the easiest way to have your full AI pipeline up and running. I'm out of time. Please come and see us on the Ubuntu booth. Have a great show and enjoy Vancouver. Thank you very much.